All right, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. Welcome. So whenever you're watching this is actually the activity that was given on February 28th about working with the quadratic formula. Okay, so if you did not get this paper in class, please make sure you come see me. I'm going to do the even questions down the board here. So if you get a chance to watch this video, you get half your assignment for free. And then your job is to actually just work on the odds. So the first thing you need to start off with is, what is the quadratic formula? Okay, it is negative b plus or minus, and then it's going to be the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay, so when we worked on this, a big key factor that I wanted to make sure you guys understood. A lot of you started having a problem with what's called the determinant, which is this factor here that is under the square root. Okay, so what I mean by that is, it was the b squared minus 4ac. Okay, you guys, a lot of you struggled with this. Remember, when you solve the quadratic formula, the first thing you want to work on is the determinant. Figure out what this is, okay? And know that if it's a number that is greater than 0, that you would have two roots, which means it would look like this, okay? If, ladies and gentlemen, it has a 0, so if I were to equal 0, it's one root. So that means it comes down and it would bounce off the graph and go up. And then the last one is if it has, if the number is less than 0, okay, which usually is a negative number, it would be no solution, so it would be up in the world like this, okay? So that was one big key aspect that I want to make sure you guys understood. And so as we go forward today, we're going to focus on ensuring we get this done first before we actually simplify and expand upon this subject. So first things first is also know we're shooting for the standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c. That is the main thing that we're shooting for as well, where before you can solve anything equals 0, you have to set these equations up. So subtract 8x from both sides. Okay, and then when you do that, you get 3x squared, and then the next thing is always the x value, so it's going to be negative 8x, and then it's the constant, which is negative 11 equals 0. Now you set your equation up, right? So now we have to set it up with our a, our b, and our c value. So on this one here, a, b, c. So a equals 3, b is negative 8, c is negative 11. And then what you do is you just use the quadratic formula that we had. So negative and a negative is going to be positive, plus or minus the square root. 64, so negative 8. So make sure if you guys put this in a calculator, you do not put it in like this. If you do, the calculator looks at it and says, oh, you're wanting me to square the 8 to 64 and then multiply in a negative. So you guys will always get the wrong answer unless you write it like this. Then it's saying, oh, you want me to take negative 8 and square it. That's a huge difference. Okay, if you do that, ladies and gentlemen, you'll know your answer is going to be here, 64. Okay, and then it's going to be minus 4 times a, and then it's going to be times negative 11. All over 2 times a, which in this case is 6. Let me grab a calculator because I forgot. So as you go through these, know what your setup is. Now you're going to multiply all these together. So we're going to focus on the 4ac next. So 4ac is a negative 4. So if you want to type in negative 4 times 3, okay, you can do that. And then not only can you go times 3, then you can also go times negative 11. So you can do it as a big sequence like this, hit enter, and I'd get 132. It's a positive number. So this turns into 8 plus or minus square root of 64 plus 132 all over 6. All right, and then your setup next would be to add those two together, and it comes out to be 196. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go left to right again, and I got 196 all over 6 again, and then your setup would be then to take the square root. So this turns out to be square root of 196, I believe, 14. So your answer is 8 plus or minus 14 all over 6. So on questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're going to get whole numbers. So you split this equation up, be 8 plus 14 over 6, and then 8 minus 14 over 6. And these both equal, so that would be 22 divided by 6, which can be reduced to 11 over 3. Okay, and then this one right here, 8 minus 14 is a negative 6. Negative 6 over 6 is, of course, negative 1. Okay, so there's your setup. So make sure as you guys go through these equations that that's kind of where we're going for. All right. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Same thing. Number 4. What is my setup? So I got to subtract 39 from both sides. Okay. So I'm not going to rewrite the equation this time. I'm just going to go off the value. So my A. So we'll start way over here. A is 3. My B is negative 4. And then my C is negative 39, okay? Because when I add this over here, I need to make sure I have the correct setup. So now you just go off your equation. So it's negative B, so it's 4 plus or minus 16. B squared is always going to be positive, okay? So make sure you guys understand that. Minus 4 times A times C. And that's all over 6. 2 times A. All right, so same setup. Make sure you guys multiply this out. Negative times the negative is going to create another positive, okay? So, negative 16, not negative 16. You go negative 4 times 3 times negative 39. It's a big number. It's 468, okay? So, I know here it's going to be 4 plus, let me write it this way. 4 plus or minus 16 plus 468 all over 6. So, and then if I take 468 and I add 16, okay, I get 484. And square root of 484 is in fact 22. So my final answer here would be 4 plus or minus 22 over 6. Now, if you want to solve it out, you can. I'm okay with you guys stopping here because my goal is for you to get to here, and then you guys should know how to split the equation and answer from there. All right, number 6. Solve this one straight up. Okay, same setup. Let me go with orange on this one. Sure, we didn't get it. All right, so subtract 2 from both sides again. So my A value, B, C is 8, it is 2, and it is negative 2. Okay, so B is negative, so it's negative 2. Square root of B squared, which is going to be 4 minus 4 times 8 times negative 2, all over the number 16. Okay, now you're just doing the calculator again. Negative 4 times 8 times negative 2. That is again turning into a positive number. So it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus square root of 4 plus 64 all over 16. Okay? Then your answer on this, so let me shrink this down so I can actually write it out. So I can write it on this side over here. Set up on this, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 68 all over 16. Okay, now I would accept this answer at this time. Okay, you could be done at this. But the question then becomes is, can you actually go any lower than this? And you can. So for everybody that wants to know how to do this, because when you get to Algebra 2, you're going to have to do this. Okay, in Algebra 1, we might stop here, or we might actually break it down some more. So what we want to do, so if you want to fast forward the video, you can, or if you want to stick it out, please do to understand. What two multiples could you break this out to be? Well, I do know 68 divided by 4 is 17. So if I go 4 and 17, 4, 9, or 16 can't be divided in here, so those are my 2 points. So I'm going to bring this over here and go in blue. So it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 17, square root of 17 all over 16, and then you simplify it. Negative 2 plus or minus, this turns into 2, square root of 17 all over 16. And then the final piece would be, of course, to simplify it one last time by dividing everything out by 2. So if I divided 2 out of here, it's -1 plus or minus square root of 17 all over 8. There you go right there. All right, if you guys have any questions for me, please ask. 8. Number 8. Simple setup, same kind of situation. Add 9, add 9. Does it matter which way you go on this equation? Probably not. Okay, I don't think so. You still get the same answer. And we'll talk about it down here because I think everybody's going this way with this equation, and I'm going to take this one back this way. So, and we'll compare answers. A. Oop, let me go farther to the left here. All right, so A, B, C. It's always good to start off with your keys so you know what you're doing. A is 10. B is -4. C is 9. So it would be 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 4 times A times C all over 20. Okay, because 2 times 10. All right, and then work it out here, multiply it together. So on my calculator, this time I'll go -4, and it's times 10 times 9. All right, and I get a -360. If it's a -360, then that means this value here doesn't change. It's still a negative, all over 20. And when you simplify it out, it's going to be 344. Brain's been working slow today. Negative, all over 20. Negative number means that this graph has no solution because you cannot have a negative square root. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the only one, but I wanted to give you an example of what it would look like. So number 8 is the only no solution, but ladies and gentlemen, that's a good example of how to do it. Number 10, last one I'm doing today. When you do number 10, same setup. Okay, A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everything to the left. So I'm going to do -16 over here, -8n, -8n. And so what I want you guys to do is for everybody that did the opposite, where they took the 5 and brought it over to that side, check your answers and see if we get the same thing. We should get the same answer. So A, B, C. Okay, A is 5. B is the one that's the single variable, -8. And then mine is -16. Okay, so let's work on this. Negative and a negative is 8, plus or minus, all right, 64. And then it's going to be, if I have this as 64, it's going to be -4 times A, which is 5, times -16. Okay, and then it's all over 10. 5 times 2 would be 10. All right, so let's try it out. -4 times 5 times -16. In one sequential sequence in the calculator, it's +320. Whoops. +320. So I know this is going to be 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 320 divided by 10, which I know can be simplified down to 8 plus or minus, and then that would be 384 all over 10. Okay, so there's your answer right there. Now, the question becomes, to make it even more difficult, can you break 384 down? So let's try it out. Okay, so let me show you how you guys would do a very large one like this. So you do 384, okay, square root. And so start with the first number you could do would be square root of 4, right? Because that equals 2. If you can answer it, that's what you do. So 384 divided by 4. Let's see if we can get an answer. I get 96, okay? Now, let me see here. So if I get my first break at 4 and 96 is one multiple. Let me see if I can do 9. So 384 divided by 9 is not a whole number. 384 divided by the next one, so it'd be 9, it'd be 16, okay, and then we could go 25, but this isn't a real one, or 36. 36 might be the last one we can do, and I'll even go up to 49. I could go 64 too if I wanted. So let's do 9. So divide it by 9. And I don't get already did 9, sorry. So it's 384, go 16. If I do that, I get, so if I go 16 here, I get 24 on this side. So ladies and gentlemen, can you take a perfect square out of this? Let's see. 36. Can I take a 36 out of there? 384 divided by 36 is a note. So 384 divided by 49 is a note. So I know we got this. Now, this is a perfect square root. The question then becomes is, can I take another square root out of here? Okay, can I do square root of, can I break 24 up? Technically you can, right? Because you can take a square root of 4 out. And if I do that, then my answer here would be square root of 6. So this one's going really far down the rabbit hole. So let's rewrite this. Okay, so here's my 384 can be broken up, because what would be 16 times 4 times 6? That would be, in fact, be 384. Okay, so you can break these up in multiple ones. So be interested to see how many people actually got this far with this one. So it's be 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 times square root of 4 times square root of 6 all over 10. All right, then you solve it out. Okay, so let's break this up. So it's going to be 8 plus or minus 4 times 2, and then it's times the square root of 6, all over 10 still. Okay, now on here, you could take the next step and multiply these together. So you get 8 plus or minus 8 and square root of 6 all over 10. So if 8 and 8, hold on a second. 8 and 8 would be 64. So that means I could have went 384, because I didn't write it down, divided by 64, and I would get 6. So sometimes you may not get it right away and understand what you did, but technically speaking, 64 times 6 is 384. Would anybody in my class know that? I'm going to go with probably not. Okay. Can you simplify this down one more? You can. You can divide out a 2. If you do that, you would have 4 plus or minus 4 square root of 6 all over 5. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be your number. So, understand kind of what we're going for today. Okay, this is a hard one. I'm glad I showed you guys this one, because this is the kind of stuff you're going to be shooting for in Algebra 2. All right, work on the left side. See if you can shrink these down. 9's simpler. The odd numbers were a little bit simpler. I kind of did the harder ones on purpose. If you have any questions, let me know. But my goal for you guys was to be able to do this math. If you could do this math all the way down on your own, then you honestly probably need to work on focusing maybe into honors geometry next year, because you can do some of the simpler stuff. If you don't want to do honors geometry and you just do regular geometry next year, then know that you're going to be skilled enough to be highly advanced when you get to Algebra 2, which is what my goal is for you as a teacher. My goal is always to leave, when you leave my classroom, you left not only as a better student, but as a better person and better overall demeanor. If you have any questions for me, please ask. Get the worksheet from me in class. I will be sending this out to parents as well. So if you don't have the worksheet, okay, you can write these problems down and put them on a piece of scratch paper and hand them in as well, because I know I have a couple students out. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know, but I'll see you guys soon.